Starting. All attendees are in listen.
Good morning. Okay then. Okay. Okay. So let us start about Docker file instructions, multi-staged builds, and registry. Okay. Then we'll get into Kubernetes objects. Okay. Right. So in the Docker file, I'm quite sure that we have understood some of the instructions. We know what is from, we know what is label, we know what is add, we know what is copy, we know what is CMD, we know what is EXEC, or what is entry point, and then we have tried to understood what is volume instruction. We have tried to understood basically what is an expose instruction. Right? So we understood their purposes, and then we have some more. Okay, that's some more instructions. Out of them, there are two major instructions. One is argument, the other one is env. One is argument, the other one is env. Okay, so now let us get started by understanding those arguments. And again, if you want to get a deeper look into it, just go into Docker file instructions. Docker documentation has a decent documentation into it, and I would expect everyone to read that. Okay, right. So now let us get into, before understanding that, let us start our playground. Okay. Right. I'll be adding an instance. Okay. So, right. So, make their test. Let me get into a test folder. Write a Docker file. I'll be calling it as from, what should I take? Let me take Alpine. Okay. Ideally, I should be giving versions, because leaving it like this will take the latest version, but it's okay for now. Ideally, never ever write just from an image. Always give a tag name. Okay. Then don't use a tag called as latest. Okay. Because latest is a tag which always changes. Apart from that, if you take any other tag, it will not change. So why should I expect? Let me try to do that. Let me go to Docker Hub, because any image which we take as of this moment is basically from Docker Hub. And in Docker Hub, I'm trying to search for Alpine. I'll click on Alpine. Huh? Docker. Linux నన్నే అయిపోయింది. అవును, ఇప్పుడు నన్నేం చేయమంటారు దానికి? మీరు ఏమని పెట్టినా క్లాస్కి వచ్చినోడికి అర్థం అవుద్ది, రానోడు గొడవ ఏమైనా ఉంటే వదిలేండి. ఓకే, fine then. So shall I take this image? What is the tag? 3.9.5. So from alpine colon 3.9.5. Okay, right. Never ever leave it like that because it is not a good sign. It might work now, it might work for the next 3 months, but it will definitely not work for the next 6 months to 1 year. If you leave it like that, by default it will take latest, and latest tag always moves forward. Okay, because latest of Tomcat was not Tomcat 8, it was Tomcat 7 some time ago. Okay, so you should always basically put a tag with a specific version whenever you're writing a Docker file. Okay, and let me try to write a very simple run instruction. What should we do? Update. Okay, and what else? I don't want to really start this container, so I'm not worried. Okay, if you want CMD, I'll put CMD. Echo. Hello. Okay, right. So now let me run this container or build this image first. Docker build -t. Okay, test. Okay, colon 0.1. This is my tag, and my Docker file is present over here. So now in this, what is build context? What is build context? I suppose spread about this in the classroom. As long as your build context is same, it will try to reuse the same image version which you have built. And build context is nothing but the directory where you are trying to build the Docker image from. In this case, it is a current directory. So whatever is in your current directory will be moved to some area called as context. Okay, so that will be build context is in your case is this test folder. Whatever are the contents of this test folder are basically verified and copied. Right. So now I try to use Docker image ls. I'm using images. So are you seeing a test image? Okay, now let me try to start the container. Docker container run -it -it, and then let me call it as test colon 0.1 /bin / bash will not work everywhere. Okay, depends on what is the image name which you take. Okay, now I am inside this container. Okay, right. So in this container, let me basically run some commands, basic commands. Okay, so let me try to run a command called as set. So what is the list of things which you are getting? What is this? These are all environmental variables. These are all environmental variables. Okay, so in the Docker container, whatever we are trying to build, there is something called as environmental variables. Okay, right. Now let us speak about this scenario. You have a container, okay, in which you are running your application. You have one more container in which you are running your database. Okay, and this is your application which is running on something like Tomcat or whatever it is. Now for my application to work, I should know where the database is, yes or no? Yes? Okay, so let us assume first I have started database container. When I start the database container, I can get the database's IP address. Okay, but how will I set the database's IP address inside the application? There should be some way to set it, right? I cannot say that I will start the container, then I will go inside, I will edit the file, and then I'll change it. Because if you do that, it is good when you are running one container. What will happen when you go to Kubernetes down the line? Because in Kubernetes, we are not speaking about one containers. We are speaking about scaling. We are speaking about multiple applications, automatic scaling. Whenever an application is scaled, will you log in automatically and change those files? No. Right? So let us assume our database got this IP address 192.168.0.10. And my application, for my application now the database should be this. Yes or no? Okay. And if you run, will you get the same IP address or you might get a different IP address? You'll get the same IP address. No way you can get the same IP address. Okay, so your IP address might be different. I cannot hard code this value over here saying that, okay, always your database's IP address is 192.168.0.10. Can I do this? Okay, in my application, can I always hard code this? Is that possible? No. So there should be some way to dynamically set this value, right? Yeah? Yes or no? Okay, now let us see if there is some way. Let me exit out of this. Now I'll go to VI, Docker file, and over here, I'll be writing one simple statement called as env. Okay, and then IP8 IP. Okay, it is always a good idea to give your stuff. And since anyway we are getting into this, let me get into Docker file instruction. Always when you're using it, please do this Google search, and then you will be taken to this. And in this, what is it I'm trying to search for? env. And how to use env? You have two ways. You can give key space value, or you can give key equals to value. There is nothing wrong in whatever you're trying to do. Okay, right. So I'll go over here, and then I'll try to write IP address, or let me put it in this way, DB IP. Okay, I can give a value or whatever it is. So DB IP by default, I'll give it as 0.0.0.0. Am I clear on this? So what is the value which I've given to DB IP address? Oh yeah. Now let us see what happens. Okay. Man, I've unnecessarily added one over here. Okay. Now shall I build this image again? I have made changes to the Docker file. If I made the changes to the Docker file, I have to build the image again. So Docker image build -t test colon 0.2. Last time it was 0.1. I'm making it as 0. Okay. Now shall I start a container with this? Docker container run -it test colon 0.2, and then let me call it as bin/sh. Now let me execute a set statement. So what was our environmental variable which we have added? Are using DB address DB IP over here, but the value is still 0. Yeah. Okay, fine. Now I'll make a slight difference in the command. I'll say Docker run container -it. Along with that, I'll be saying -e. Okay. DB underscore, what is it? DB IP, is it? DB IP is equals to 192.168.10.11. Okay. Are you getting the value of it? Yes. So if I can tell my developer, whenever you want to use a database, don't use the other stuff, try to use this environmental variable. You tell me whatever environmental variable which you want. If I can set that environmental variable, is the problem solved now? Yes or no? Okay. So while running the container, if I want to change any values while starting the container, what is it I can do? I can basically set an environmental variable. Let it be anything. I've just given the example of this database. But this is not the only case where you need dynamic values. There are many cases where you need dynamic values. Right? So generally your application comes up with saying that you can connect to a Postgres database, you can connect to a MySQL database, you can connect to different kinds of database. So for example, you might need to tell the database type also. Then you will put one more environmental variable, env, okay, database type equal to default MySQL. But if you are connecting to Oracle database, change that one also. How do you change it? While starting your container, while creating your container, basically pass that value as -e. Am I clear on env now? Okay, so why do we use env variables? whenever you are creating your container or launching your container, there might be certain values that will be changed or certain values which will be dynamic, right? To bring in those dynamic values into your container, you can use this. You can use this. Am I clear on this? Okay. So now for the classical applications, basically what happens is you have to take this variable value and then write a shell script to change your what you call startup script. But if you take all the latest applications that are coming down the line, for example, if you take Spring Boot, if you take Spring Cloud, if you take Python's Django framework, if you take anything which is latest technology, they have a capability of reading the values directly while starting your application from environmental variable. Older application, you might not be in a position to change it. So in that cases, what you should do is in your run command or CMD, whatever you are trying to write, try to write a script which goes and reads these values and updates the necessary files. For that, you can use shell script. For that, you can write Python or you can write whatever it is. That's the basic idea. So, for example, your application was developed 10 years ago. For your application, there is a database details present in a text file. Now, your developer will tell that, okay, I'm not going to change the code for you. Then the only thing which you are left with is you have to write a shell script which basically goes by regular expression matching, reads the value from an environmental variable and put it over there before it starts the application. But if you are working on any latest applications which are under development, you need not worry about it because your developer will tell, okay, whenever I'm reading the databases, I also have the environmental variables for it. If you set the environmental variable, that is more than enough. Okay. So right now we are setting the environmental variable to an IP address, but doing this is also not good. Okay. So eventually we will set the IP address of something called as a load balancer. So that even if the container is down, your load balancer IP address is always the same. That's the whole idea. Okay. But that discussion will come when we speak about Kubernetes. But am I clear now? Yeah. So if my application has any dependency on any other applications or any dynamic data which it needs, I can set the default value, and whenever I am launching my container or creating my container, I can change those values. Am I clear on this? Yes? Okay. Right. So let me do one more thing. One last thing to be very specific with respect to environment. Okay. I'll go to the VI Docker file. Okay. And I can use that environmental variable in the other areas of my script also. I can say echo dollar dbip. You can use this dollar expression or you can use dollar whatever you like. Okay. Dollar curly braces or directly dollar and expression. Let us see what happens. Okay. So how many environmental variables can you have in a Docker file? There is no limit. That is your needs. Okay, Docker will not put limits on you need to use only 10 or 20 or 30. It depends on whatever you want. So let me build one more Docker file for this. Docker build -t. Okay. Test :0.3. Oh, let me do one thing. Docker build -- Docker image build -- help. Okay. Colon less will not work very good, but still. Okay. So, man, this is horrible. Okay, fine. So, Docker build -t test :3.0 or 0.3, right? 0.3. And let me click on enter. Just observe this output carefully. Okay. So, what has basically happened? Echo $dbip. I'll come back and solve that problem. Okay. Right. So, I have created an environmental variable called as dbip. Okay. But I am unable to solve that. So, shall we try to fix it? Okay. How to use a variable which you have defined inside your script. Right. So, for that you don't need to do any magic. Docker hub Remember, we have seen a Jenkins image long back. Yeah. Okay. Whenever you are writing a Docker file, first have one Docker file as a reference to you so that you can know the instructions. And this is a good reference point to have. Okay. So there are an argument and there is, so there should be somewhere where he is using this Jenkins home, right? So let me search for Jenkins home. So what is he trying to do? What was our mistake? మనం చేసిన తప్పేంటి? Is my expression right or wrong? First of all, dollar variable name. Did I use that? Dollar $dbip. But what was my mistake? I have not put it in quotes. Yeah? Okay, right. So whenever you're basically working on the stuff, try to basically have a look at existing scripts. You will not be able to remember everything, right? And Jenkins is one such image which has almost everything. So whenever you're writing Docker file, I'm not telling to go to the script, copy paste. No. For everything which you are using, there is already an example over here. So if I am using an environmental variable, how to change those environmental variables, how to use that value. So everything is basically defined over here. Now, what I'll do is, I'll go back to my, so how do I fix it now? Vi Docker file, and what should I change? If I put this in double quotes, okay. Now let us see if there is any improvement. So I'll call it as 0.4. Okay. Still it is not working. What is the reason? Pardon me? Dollar inside curly braces. Okay. If that is the case, okay. Where is curly brace over here? There is no curly brace over here, right? Yeah. You have two ways of writing that. Then why is it not working? Pardon me? Be loud. Maximum మీరు చెప్తుంది ఏమవుద్ది తప్పొద్దు. Underscore. Where will I? My variable name is dbip. Here the variable name is Jenkins underscore home. To use it, he is using dollar and this expression. Now, what is that I have done? What is the mistake then? ఏం అండర్స్కోర్ అండి? వేరియబుల్ నేమ్ లో లేని అండర్స్కోర్ అక్కడ ఎలా అవుతుంది? వాట్ ఈస్ మై వేరియబుల్ నేమ్ ఓవర్ హియర్? Okay. See what is it? What is the difference? You just tell me. env is defined over here like this. Username. I have defined a variable. I want to use that variable. Where is username coming from? Username తో సంబంధం లేదు. Okay. Environmental variable can be used as a variable like a shell script. In shell script, whenever you define a variable, how will you use it? You will use dollar expression. Now think of it in the same way. I am unable to use it. What could be the reason? It is unable to expand. What is it? Hyphen D. అక్కడ యూజర్ యాడ్ అండి అది వాడేది, నేను ఎక్కువ అండి వాడేది. యూజర్ యాడ్ లో hyphen D అంటే హోమ్ డైరెక్టరీని కూడా యాడ్ చేయమని. What is the reason? Can you just tell me what is the mistake which I have done? Source the variable. There is no variable to source. I have created it as, where is he sourcing? Give me that. So whenever you're giving any examples, give me with respect to this. Where is he sourcing? And after building the image, I am able to see the value. There is no doubt about it. Yes or no? I put the value as db underscore ip. In the container, I am seeing the values. But how about while building the image? That's the basic stuff. Slash is because he cannot write the whole line in whole expression in one line. He is putting a slash to tell that it is a multi-line. Even though it is multi-line, consider it as one line. Slash andukku kaadu vaadedi. Slash bin slash sh. What is that? That is a shell. I want a variable value, sir. I don't want all of that. It's a local environmental variable. What is local environmental variable? I know environmental variables. There are user environmental variables and system environmental variables. I have never came across a word called as local environmental variable. Try with a curly brace. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. Fine. Vi Docker file. And what is it I'm being asked is? Okay. I use this. Okay. Now I'll try to say Docker build 0.5. Am I getting 0.0.0.0 is time, or is it same stuff over here? What is going wrong then? Okay. Don't basically, so slash is not the answer. Hyphen D la answer kaadu. Okay. Right. So what there is no way you can set the path. Okay. Because what is path now? I am reading a variable, sir. Okay. Let me show you what I'm trying to do. Okay. దీంట్లోనే చూపిస్తాను మీకు. Now let us assume that I put some variable value. Test equals to hi. Okay. So how will I print this test value? What is it I'm getting? Hi. Yes? Yes or no? Yeah? I'm getting that value. This is what I'm trying to do. దీనికి ఎక్కడ పాత్ సెట్ చేశాను? In Linux, you can define variables and you can use variables with a dollar symbol. That is what I'm trying to achieve. Do we need to change the port, ma'am? సో అక్కడ వరకు ఆపండి, ఇంకా అంత దూరం వెళ్ళకండి. ఇంకా ఆలోచన అసలు నెట్వర్కింగ్ కి ఎన్విరాన్మెంటల్ వేరియబుల్ కి సంబంధం ఏంటి? వాల్యూ ఇస్ నాట్ అసైన్డ్. ఫైన్, let me do that. So I'll put test1. Okay. I'm not defined any value. Okay. It will tell this. Or test1 equals to empty. I'll say echo dollar test1. It will print empty. Okay. Now what is happening over here? Echo dollar test1 should print the value of empty. But what is it printing? Something like this is happening there. Avuna kada? Yeah? This is what is happening there. Try to find a solution. By the way, this is an interview question. Asked in very frequent interviews, దానికి సొల్యూషన్ కనుక్కోండి. మీకు తీరిగ్గా లేకపోతే ఒక ఇంటర్వ్యూ పోద్ది, మీ ఇష్టం. ఇలాగే చెప్పాల్సి వస్తుంది ఏమన్నా ప్రశ్నలు కనుక్కోమంటే. ఓకే. ఓకే. This has been asked in an interview. Find a solution for this. Google it, search it for yourself. What is the mistake in that? Yeah? Okay. I am not telling the answer for that. Right? If you want, what is it I have done? Cat. This is what I have done. Okay? So, look at that. Try to fix that expression. I should get 0.0.0.0 there, not dbip. Okay? So, try to find a solution for that and don't tell to anyone, because other person might get selected in an interview. Okay? So, am I clear on this? Find it. I am not telling any answer for that. We have to declare as an argument. Do whatever you want. Do it by yourself. Okay? But declaring doesn't happen in Dockerfile. Okay? Whenever you say env, it is already declared. Okay? Right. కొన్నిసార్లు తప్పట్లేదు, ఇలా చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది. Okay. Right. Now I'll speak about one more kind of the stuff which is called as argument. Okay. In argument, what will I do is I'll put something called as test. Are you seeing over here? There are a lot of arguments that are defined over here. I'm using the same stuff. Okay. Oh, test equals to what is that they have given? Okay. Let me go with test equals to. I'll be writing something like check. Okay. Right. And then let me write echo dollar test. Am I clear on this? So I've created one more variable which is called as argument. For that also I've given a value. Okay. And now let me build my what is the version which I have? 0.5. I'm building 0.6. Okay. So that expression still has to be fixed. Okay. So remember we have two variables now. One is dbip. The other one is test. Okay. Now let me create a container. Docker. Okay. Image build -t and then what was it? 0.6. 0.6. Oh, we have built the image, right? We have to create a container out of it. Docker container run -it test colon 0.6 and /bin/sh. Okay, now I'll execute the set statement. So what is happening over here? Am I seeing dbip? Yes. Am I seeing test? No. So whatever I am setting as argument is not available over here. Whatever I am setting as argument is not available over here. Okay, right? Now let me go to the Docker documentation. Where is argument? Yes. Okay, right. So he has given an argument and he is setting the default value, and while he is building, he is passing something called as --, build argument. So shall I pass this now? Okay. So now I'll be building one more version of the image. Okay. Docker image build --, build argument. What is my build argument's name? Test equals to 1. Okay. Antega. So that's what he is using, right? So if you see test equals to, he has a argument called as user for which he is passing what user. I have an argument called as test for which I am passing as 1. Okay. And then I'll give -t test colon 0.7 and dot. Okay. So basically, okay, while I am basically creating the image, I have an option of passing the argument. While I am starting a container, I have an option of passing the environmental variables. Okay. So if you know how to use, okay, if you know how to exactly use this what you call arguments, okay, then you can basically do certain things. So let us try. Okay. So I'll not use this test folder. Okay. I'll get into make dir. Okay. Let me call it as checking. cd checking. And then I'll be trying to tell vi docker file. Okay. and then I'll do one thing. Okay, idoddu. From Ubuntu. Okay, and then I am setting the value called as arg. Okay, in the arg I'll be using something called as let me not use setting. Let me use something called as image. Okay, image 1. Okay, right. So my argument's name is image 1, and then while I'm running, okay, I'll say, or let me tell this. Let me not use this as image 1. Let me call this as location. Okay, and then I'll say wget dollar location. Okay, so I have some location. I'm just trying to download that. Okay, and then CMD. Just because I have to write some CMD, I'm writing it as echo hello. So what is that I've done? I've taken a Ubuntu image. I've used the argument called as location. Then I'm trying to tell that wget location. So whatever location which you give, it will try to download from there. Okay. Now let us see. Okay. So there was some Spring Pet Clinic path which you used to use. Docker image creation. Idega. So I'll be passing this as a location to this. Okay. So Docker image build. Okay. Hyphen build argument. And what is my build argument's name? Location equals to this. Okay. And my image name is checking, and let me call it as 0.1, and my Docker file is present over here. I might have messed something. I've opened single quotes. Oh boy. దీనికన్నా మళ్ళీ రాసేస్తాం సుఖం. Docker image build hyphen build argument. Okay. Location equals to single quotes hyphen t checking colon 0.1, and I'm giving a current directory. So it is downloading the Ubuntu image because I don't have Ubuntu image. Okay. Now what is happening? It says wget is not found. Wget is not available in this, is it? Now we'll do one small change. bi docker file, and we all know that in openjdk:8 there was a wget. Yes, because we have used it earlier. openjdk:8. Is it downloading? Yeah? Yes? Okay. So, now if I want to download some other file, what will I do? While I am building my image, I will basically change my build argument. Yes or no? Okay. So, this build arguments or arguments will have an impact while you are building the image. env variables can be used while you are building the image as well as while your container is launched. Okay. So, here we have two kinds of variables in a Docker file. One is basically a normal variable. Okay. So you can declare a variable like what you do in a shell script. Okay. The other one, basically the two areas what Docker tries to tell is there is something called as argument and there is something called as env. Whatever you have defined in argument will be alive only till your image is built. Whatever you have defined in env will be available even after image is built. That means whenever you start the container, you will see that environment. You will see that as an environmental variable. So in Docker file, you can use two kinds of variables. One is env, which becomes an environmental variable. The other one is basically arg. Argument can be used to change the behavior during building process. If you see in my last stuff, okay, I have said my argument is location. Then I said wget location. Did I told where to download it from? No. While building the image, I have passed the location of the jar file and it was able to build that image. It was able to build that image. Right? So argument can be set while you are building the image. Okay. So now shall we try to basically set the what do you call environmental variable? Yeah. So in environmental variable, what is that we will do? We will do vi docker file and then okay. So let me call that env. I downloaded some file, right? And then path edi. What is that? Where is that file? This one, right? Then yeah. So I'll basically say env, okay, jar path, okay, equals to, let me put as jar path. I'll not put as equals to. Okay. So rather than telling this, what I'll do is, I'll basically change this. I'm trying to tell Java hyphen jar comma okay dollar jar underscore path. Okay, fine. Right then. Now what I'll do is docker, okay, the only thing which I'll try to change is boy దీంట్లో మారుతుంది దరిద్రం ఇంకోటి ఉండదేమో. Man, 0.2. Is it okay? So I'm building a new version of the image which is called as 0.2. env must have 2. Okay. vi docker file env jar path. Okay, let me try to write equals to okay. So is it okay? Now I should have ideally exposed 8080 also, but it's okay. Docker container run. Okay. So hyphen e. What is my argument location environment variable's name? Jar underscore path equals to in root this. Okay. And then my image's name. What is the name of my image? Checking colon 0.2. Okay. So let us see what happens. What is happening? Okay. Right. What I'll try to do is This is the same problem which we have basically faced into. I'll get into -it slash bin slash here it is bash. Okay. Now let me to use the set variable. Okay. So what was my variable's name? In jar path, am I seeing my variable with the value which I have set? But my expression is wrong there. Okay. For that I have already given you exercise. Try to find out how to write an expression there. Okay. So the way I have written the expression is wrong. Okay. Right. But is my environmental variable getting set? Yes. దీన్ని ఎలా వాడుకోవాలో ఎక్స్ప్రెషన్ తప్ప అది నేను ఆల్రెడీ మీకు ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేయమని. Go and find it out. Okay, I am not answering that, and this is required for every interview and for every work. You go and search and fix that problem. Okay. ప్రతిదీ నేను చెప్తుంటే ఇప్పుడు చూడండి ఆదివారం చాలా మంది రాలేదుగా. యా, ఇలా సెలవులు తీసుకునే వాళ్ళకి కొన్నిసార్లు తప్పదు. ఓకే, రైట్. సో am I able to set the environmental variable? Yeah. What is that I am unable to set? I am unable to use it because of my expression. Because of my expression. You need to correct that expression. So how to correct that expression? Google, search, find it out. Okay. Because today in the evening also we don't have any class. Yeah. Let us try to find out what is the problem with that expression. But am I able to change the variable values while I am building the image? I have already shown you location. Okay. Am I able to basically set the environmental variables while I am creating containers? Yes. So to change the build variables or build arguments, we'll be using --, build arg while building the image. To change the environmental variables while you are launching your container, you can use something called as -e or -env or -e, whatever it is. You can set the environmental variables. Now the thing which you guys have to find out is, okay, I am able to get the environmental variable, but there is something wrong in this expression. So what is that something wrong? Try to find out. Yeah? Okay. Will you? Yes? Okay. We have built the Docker image, right? 0.2. Let me try to do it with 0.3. And I have tried to run the Docker container. Not here. -it, let me remove 0.3. I built 0.3, right? Okay. What is it? I messed up. Okay. So it is trying to tell, strangely now, Java is not found. Okay. So I have tried with quotes and I have tried without quotes. Okay. So now you evaluate this expression. Okay. So for this, if you want to understand, there is something called as Docker logs. There is something called as Docker logs. Okay. And give your container's name. Then it will tell you what is the expression which it was trying to build. From that expression, you can make out what was the mistake. Clear on that? Right? Docker logs and gotti container pair ichar ankondi. If you just give the container name, it will try to tell you what were the logs that were basically shown over there. Right? From that, you can make out. So, removing the quotes or having the quotes, there is still some issue. There is still some issue. If I have the quotes, it is trying to tell that your path is not found. If I remove the quote, it is trying to tell that Java is not found. But we are using OpenJDK image. In OpenJDK image, Java will be there. There is no way that Java is not there. There is something wrong with the expression which is happening over there. Okay. Try to find out what that is. Okay. Clear? Okay. Our to find out you will be successful in the interview. Otherwise, all of this journey is waste. Okay. And I am not telling that answer. There is no way that I am going to tell that answer. So, if you want to really research this part, okay, start with, okay, these two concepts in Linux machines. Okay. One is in Linux, okay, we have Okay. Environmental variables. You can set environmental variables. In the same way, you can create variables. Okay. How to use that environmental variables in your shell scripts? Search around that patterns. You will find a solution for whatever I'm asking. Clear on this? And there are many Linux admins in the room. I am quite sure that you should have find it out if you are writing shell script all these days. But if you are not doing that, I'm already sorry for you. మీరు లినక్స్ అడ్మినిస్ట్రేటర్ అనుకుంటున్నారు కానీ కాదు. ఓకే, మీరు లినక్స్ అడ్మినిస్ట్రేటర్ అయితే వుడ్ హ్యావ్ గివెన్ మీ ద ఆన్సర్ ఆల్రెడీ. ఓకే, సో వాట్ ఈస్ హ్యాపెనింగ్? ఐ హావ్ షోన్ యూ ద బిహేవియర్ ఆల్సో. ఓకే, సో ట్రై టు ఫైండ్ ఇట్ అవుట్. క్లియర్? Yes. So what is the difference between build argument and environmental variable? Argument can be set while you are building the image. Environmental values can be set while you are starting the container. Argument value will be stayed or will be alive as long as you build the image. After you build the image, argument doesn't have any existence. Right? Whereas environmental value can be used while you are building the image and also while you are running your container. So if you want to use a variable which can be used while building the image and also while running the container, you go for environmental variables. Right? Fine. Clear on this? Okay, these two are very widely used. Okay, right. And then we have some of the other instructions. So argument, why we use argument? Argument is a variable that can be set during image build. Okay. And now scope. Scope is till which point it will be alive. This argument value will be available till the images build. So you can use this variable value while you are building the image, not really while you are running the container. Okay. So syntaxes and all of that stuff, go and refer to this section. And then, by the way, if you want to understand how the stuff is working, you can look into these examples also. You can look into these examples also. Okay, to understand how it is basically working. Right? Okay. Right. And then we have env. Okay. This will be environment variable. This will be environmental variable. Okay. Available in running container. Okay. These values can be set or changed while the container is created. Okay. Right. So you will have default values and all of that stuff. For that, you basically refer this. Am I clear on this? So your database connection details will always be an environmental variable. Okay. So whatever values that you require dynamically while your application is running will be an env. So if you go into the Docker file, which I have opened in the last case. So if you see Jenkins_home, they have set it as this stuff. If I want, I can change this. Okay. And Jenkins slave agent port, they have basically set it. Okay. And then once they have set this value, they are trying to use that somewhere in the expose statement. Are you saying expose? Yeah. In the expose, they are basically using this stuff. Okay. So they are able to create arguments, create environmental variables, and they are trying to use them. Am I clear on this? Yeah. Okay. So now, fine. So we cleared about argument and environmental variable. These are the most widely used ones, right? And then we have some of the ones which are not widely used, but they are interesting. Okay. So we have something called as on build. So whenever your image build starts, if you want to do something, I want to, whenever my image build starts, I want to execute some script, right? So in that cases, you can go with on build instruction. So let me try to show the examples over there directly. Where is it? Okay. So this instruction, it acts like a trigger. In Jenkins, we have something called as hooks, right? So what is it trying to tell? Whenever image building is started, try to copy or add a file, or add all of your local directory to the app/src folder. Whenever image building starts, that is basically run this command. So after this command is executed, then your image build starts. Yeah. So as long as your image build is doing, if you want to do some prep activities, so we'll generally have precondition, actual step, and then post checks, right? So pre checks, post actual build process, and then post checks. So if you want to do something just before building the image, you can add it using on build. But this is a good stuff, but not many people use it. Okay. Right. Stop signal. Generally, right, whenever you are running your container, I said that if you have executed Docker container run command in an interactive mode, and if you basically exit out of it, okay, or if you do Control C, okay, so your container will be killed. Okay. Now let us assume that you are trying to write a Docker file for a network switch. Okay. In that, Control C means not exit, but it is some command. Control C ante alage exit kaadu. Control C ante edo command packet పంపించండి. Control C is not actually exit signal, but they want something else as exit signal. For example, in that network, so let us assume we are building a Docker container for a Netgear wireless router. In wireless router, Control C means it is not basically stop the network switch. It might be copy the packets. Let us assume this is the case. Now, if you use Control C, basically what happens, it will, in Linux, it will generate a signal which is called as signal kill. Okay. Now, what you can do in stop signal is you can change that behavior. You can say that, okay, Control C will not be my killing signal. Whatever I type over here will be my killing signal. Okay. This is generally not used for the software based containers, but there are many people who use Docker as an operating system inside hardware devices, IoT devices, and all of that stuff. For in that cases, if they want to change the behavior, what characters should basically kill my container? For that, they will use it. Okay, we will not be using that. Okay, and then when your container is running, how will Docker know that whether your container is running or not? So for that, what Docker has said that is, I'll be giving something called as health check. In this health check, you try to write whatever condition which you want. Okay. So which will tell whether your container is running or not. So for example, okay. So while Apache is running, okay, your way of telling whether container is running or not is whether Apache process is alive or dead. Okay. So you can put that as a health check. In health check, actually, there are some interesting stuffs over here. Okay. There is something called as interval. There is something called as timeout, and there is something called as start period. Okay. So interval is how many times the health check will be done. Health check will be done for every 30 seconds. Okay. Timeout. For whatever command which you have executed, if you don't get the response in 30 seconds, then it will be timed out. Okay. So start period. How much time does it have to wait before it executes the start? Right. So it is 0 seconds by default. If you want, you can change all of these values, right? And then retries. How many times it will retry to check, to do the health checks? So it will do 3 health checks. If all the 3 are failed, Docker will report as failure. That's the basic idea. Now, over here, just look at this. He is trying to tell that health check. My interval is what? It is not 30 seconds. He is changing the interval to 5 minutes. And then he is trying to tell timeout is 3 seconds. And then he is trying to tell that as long as this is happening, my container is in healthy state. So what is that he is trying to do? He is trying to ping to the local host page. If local host page is responding, the container is running. If the local host page is not responding, then the container will not run. So for that they use this health status, right? This is interesting stuff. Okay, so especially whenever you want to run a scaled containers, because we cannot get into health check of every container and then work it out whether they are alive or not. If you write this health check, it would be really useful. Okay, right. Okay, so those days were gone when we were using only Linux on Docker files. Now we have Windows images, right? So there are many different kinds of stuff which we happen. And generally what we do is we do use run instruction, right? And whenever we do run, it will go to the default shell. Okay. But this shell command, what it does is, you can tell the executable and you can tell the parameters. If you see over here, he is trying to tell that shell bin/sh, and then he is passing the other commands to it. I'll show you some other interesting. So what is the shell over here? If you are writing this on a Windows, in Windows we'll have a PowerShell actually. So he's trying to tell that run this command with a PowerShell. Okay, and then here run this command as a DOS prompt. So while you are running the commands, if you want to choose what terminal which you want to use, okay, then you can use this shell instruction. Okay, shell is basically for calling which terminal do you want to use, right? Okay, one last thing was there, man. I think I've spoken about everything. Okay, right. So whenever you see hash in this, it is a comment. Okay, hash means that will be ignored. That is just for readability. Okay, and then there is one more thing which is called as Docker ignore. So whenever you say Docker ignore, basically what happens is, if you remember, I said that my current directory will be the build context. Whatever is there in the current directory will be there in the build context. So if I don't want to add some of the files to that build context, what I can do is I can basically use Docker ignore file. Okay. How many of you know Git? How many of you know Git? In Git will we have git ignore file? What will git ignore do? It will ensure that whatever patterns which you have written over there are not part of your Git repository. Yes, Docker ignore is the same thing. .docker ignore file will ensure whatever paths which you have written over there are not part of your build context. Are not part of your build context. By default, the local directory wherever you have written Docker file, everything is part of build context. If you want to skip some of the folders over there, then you can use Docker ignore. For the people who don't know git ignore, don't even worry about Docker ignore. When we discuss about git ignore, then you will be able to map it. But for the people who know git ignore, did you understand the Docker ignore file? Or wherever you see docker ignore file, that's the same concept, right? So you have a series of folders or files and you want to skip some files, you don't want to add some files. Then you will use basically a Docker ignore command. There are some of the people who, how many of you don't know git ignore? How many of you don't know git ignore? Okay, right? So you leave it for now. When we learn about git ignore, you will understand what this is all about. So this is not very widely used also, but we have this. So if you look at instructions, right? On build, what is the other thing? Stop signal and health check. Okay. And then at the last we have something called, this is not an instruction, but this is Docker ignore. Okay. So now, okay, out of all of them, the most widely used instructions which you have to be very perfect is obviously without from nothing happens. Okay, and then env and argument undoubtedly, because we will always have situations where we need to change some of the values. Okay, in that there is one area which you should find out. Okay, why is it printing? Okay, my environmental variable, it should print the value of the environmental variable, right? But it is not doing that, it is printing the environmental variable, right? So now, by the way, you can use Stack Overflow for that, you will directly get the answer for that. Okay, the reason why I am not trying to tell is, it is a very silly reason. Okay, and if you find out, you will remember it for longer term rather than me telling in the classroom. Okay, and then we will be using expose a lot, because generally we work with HTTP applications and not TCP applications where we need to expose our ports, right? And we use volume instructions, we use run instructions, right? Yeah, and Run volume. Shell, no man. Shell is basically people who build Windows containers use it a lot. Okay, not really the people from Linux, not shell. Uh, CMD and entry point. CMD and entry point. So these are very important. Okay, add and copy. Okay, has an alternative, right? But you can use add and copy also. But the whole point is the difference between add and copy. They have been asking the same interview question from the past 4 years, and it is a standard interview question. I'm not sure why people ask it, right? But what is the difference between add and copy? Add can add and copy can copy, right? Yeah, అంతే కదా. What then? What is that add can do in addition to what copy can do? Add can download from URL, whereas copy can copy the files only from your local system into the Docker container. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Clear on that? Yeah. Okay. So now, if my application is using some other application and I need that other application's IP address, what will I do? I'll use that as an environmental variable. Okay. Whatever dependencies which my application needs to have while the container is running, all of them will be environmental variables. So I need to make changes in such a way that my application reads those values from environmental variables. And that is a very small change if your application is under development. If that is not the case, you have to write something in run or CMD command so that you run a shell script, and that shell script or a Python script does all the magic of basically copying that environmental variables to some files. Arc, grep, sed, you'll be using that combinations. Okay, right. Okay, so now while I'm running my container, okay, so there are two options. I can go with Java 8 version or Java 9 version, and I can run my application. I want to give a choice to the users, right? Saying that, okay, let us assume my application is Swiggy. I want to tell that, okay, this Swiggy application you can run in Java 8 or Java 9. Okay, so how will I basically give that to the user? Java 8 or Java 9, when is it decided? While you are creating your container, yes or no? What can help you to basically change the values while you are creating your container? Pardon me? Argument. Okay? Sorry sir, it is env. Okay? If you remember, we have put the argument value and env value. And then I have started the container. In the container, I was not seeing the argument value, I was just seeing DBIP, database IP address, not the argument value. Environment is available even in the container. So now, one more question. I want to build an image. While building the image, okay, I have two versions of softwares. Okay, one is downloaded from one artifact or one URL. The other one is downloaded from other URL. Which URL should I download from? I want to give this comfort to the user who is building the image. Okay, so whether my Spring Pit Clinic is from S3 bucket or from Azure is something user can choose while he is building the image. So what should I do for this now? Argument. Okay, just understand this difference. If you want to change the behavior, or if you want to change some value in the container, it is always env value. If you want to change the environmental variable, if you want to change the value of something while you are building the image, it is always argument. Am I clear with this statement? Yes? Okay. So if someone says that I have written a Docker file and I want to run this Docker file with what do you call Java 8 version, it has to install Java 8. Let us assume this is what yes. Okay. But I want to use the same Docker file to install Java 8 or Java 9, but while building the image, I will tell you what is that I want. Here, when is he telling the value? While building the image. So whenever he is telling the value while building the image, it is always the argument. Okay. So now he says that, okay, I have created I want to run a Docker container in such a way that, okay, I have to choose whether I want to use, okay, Java 8 or Java 9. for running my application. Here he is not speaking about installing. He is speaking about executing the application. Okay. So now let us assume that this is a story. You have one Docker container. Okay. And you have two databases. Yeah. So let us assume that this is test database and this is sample database. And then let us assume this is your application. This is going to be your application. Okay. So now while creating the application, you should have an option to select what database do you want to use. Okay. Then what will I do? Argument or an environmental variable? When will we require a database connection? While running the image or while building the image? నాకు అప్లికేషన్ కి డేటాబేస్ తో పని ఎప్పుడు ఉంటుంది? ఇమేజ్ ని బిల్డ్ చేసేటప్పుడు, అప్లికేషన్ రన్ అయ్యేటప్పుడు. సో when will I work with my database? While application is running or while image is building? Application is run. So if there is anything that is required while application is running, it is always environmental variable. So I'll say Docker container run whatever name of your -e, okay, database equal to whatever the database which you want to use, test data or sample data. Okay, am I clear on this? Okay, so anything that is required to change its behavior while your container is running is always environmental variable. Okay, now let me tell you one more thing. Okay, so I am building one image. Okay, I want to build a container in such a way that, okay, it should have possibility of having either /apps folder or, okay, it is / sorry, /apps all. So my application will be present in lib or var lib apps. Okay, and I want to give this choice to the user depending on which container image which he is trying to take. Okay, in some container images he can have apps. In some, let us assume in this way. So in some versions of your application you might require /apps folder. In some versions of your application you might require var lib apps folder. Okay, and you want to give this flexibility to the user. Where will you give this? Environmental variable or an argument? Okay, so now let us go back to history. What is Docker image collection of? Image layers. What is image layers all about? Storage. Here what is it I am trying to tell about? You can have either this storage or that storage. And storage definition is made while you are creating the image. So what is the value which can help while basically creating the image? Argument. That is how you make decisions. ఇప్పుడు నేను ఏదైతే dynamic nature, whatever dynamic nature which you are asking, is it required while running the container or is it has to be part of my image? If it has to be part of my image, it is always argument. If it has to be part of my container, it is always environmental. Clear on this? So for example, if he says that, okay, while my application can run with Oracle JDK or Open JDK. Okay, so whether you want a Oracle JDK flavor or a Open JDK flavor, user should give an option. Okay, now here he is speaking about installing software. Whether it is Oracle JDK or Open JDK, user will tell you. And installing software will always happen during image building, not during container running. Yes or no? So for this kind of stuff, we will always have a build argument. Okay. So now, while the application is running, I will give the user option whether he wants a verbose logs or whether he wants normal logs. The logs are generated not while building the image, but while your application is running. So this has to be an environmental variable. This is how you make decisions. Am I clear on this? Yeah, right? So there was a question yesterday in my one-on-one session saying that, okay, I have a database. How do I change the database connections? I have some app server which requires an IP address. How will I give the IP address? Anything that is required for your application while it is running is always a env variable, and anything that is required by your image while it is building the image is an argument. Right? So, but if you put it as an environmental variable, it will have a longer lifespan. Yeah. So that's the whole idea. Clear on this? Yeah. Okay. Never ever mess with those ideas, but you have still one problem to be solved. Okay. Our expression of writing how to use the environmental variable. Okay. Inside your Docker file itself. Just have a closer look at it and you will be able to find it. I didn't get the dynamic IP address concept. Okay. There is no need of dynamic IP address concept. Let us put it in this way. You want to run two containers. Okay. One container is MySQL. The other container is, let us call it as Swiggy. Simply. Okay. Swiggy application, whenever user tries to insert the data, it has to store in a database. Yes or no? So for the Swiggy to connect to the database, does it require its IP address or not? So now we have Swiggy application and a database. What container will we launch first? Swiggy or database? Will we launch Swiggy? Okay. అసలు కొంచెం కూడా ఆలోచన పూర్తిగా మానేసినట్టున్నారు ఆదివారం పూట. Right? So generally, right, this is a very simple logic. I have said this in migration also. Whenever you are trying to launch anything, the order of execution depends on dependencies. Okay? Database can run alone. Yes or no? Database కి వేరే సర్వర్లతో సంబంధం లేదు. అది ఒంటరిగా సొంతంగా రన్ అవ్వగలదు. Yes or no? Okay? Database doesn't require any other application to work because it can work on its own. Yes or no? Yes? But for your application to work, you need a database. So who is depending on whom? Your application is depending on database. So you will never launch your application fast. For your application to work, you have to launch all of its dependencies first. So I have launched a database. When I create a Docker container for a database, will I get an IP address? Yes or no? Yes. Now what is that I have to do? I have to give that IP address to my application because it needs to connect to that database. Yeah? Okay? So that I will do while my container is running. Right? So for example, let me put it in a very simple way. Your application is using Google Drive. Your application is using Google Drive. But while running the container, it can connect to one Google Drive. It can connect to your Google Drive or my Google Drive. So while launching this container, okay, if it has to connect to my Google Drive, I will give my username and password. If it has to connect to your Google Drive, we will give your email, your username and your password. Yes or no? So this is a decision that has to be made runtime while your application is running. And these are all environmental variables. Okay? But if you want to say that this application should always connect to a Google Drive of mine, then you can tell that in the image itself. Okay? Because you have built this container because it connects to your Google Drive. Something like that. So the decision whether it is okay should be always or can be changed. When it can be changed, is it for building the image or is it for the running application? Okay. Database IP address for the application is a runtime decision, not a compile time decision or not a static time decision. That's the reason why we always use environmental variables. Clear on this? Okay. Now if someone says that my application uses some AWS has access key and secret key. For some reason, your application is using AWS and it requires access key and secret key. When will you pass it? Will it be an environmental variable or an argument? Environmental variable or argument. Your application for running needs to connect to AWS. Environmental variable. Please. Okay. So anything that is required for your application to run, and if it can be changed during runtime, it is always an environment. Right? So in the future, can I change that value? Yeah, we can change environmental variables, right? You have to get into the container and simply run the export command. Yes, that's the whole idea. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Find the Docker file. I will not give any clue on that. If I have 3 arguments in Docker file during image, I build only 3 arguments. There will be error. Yes. There will not be error if you have given a default value. For the arguments, what you can do is you can tell the default values. If you tell the default values, it is not necessary for you to set the value. Yeah? Okay. Right. Clear on this? Okay. Now we have to understand something called as multi-staged Docker building. So what right now we are building in one stage. There is a multi-stage Docker building. We'll speak about that. Okay. So for that, before that, we will go to the break. Okay. And for the people who know Maven, please try to recollect the Maven MVN package command. That is what we'll be using in this classroom after that. Okay. So we'll speak about multi-stage Docker building. Okay. Why will we use it? What is the life without multi-stage and what is the life with multi-stage? This is the whole idea. And then I think I've spoken about one topic in the last. What was it? Registry. Yeah. So till now we have done everything but Docker push. Yeah. So if I have to do Docker push, what is that I'll be doing? So that will be the agenda of. Yeah, right? Okay then. Thanks. Okay, guys. Right. So, are we all set? Yes? Okay. So, generally what we do is, when developer submits the code, we'll take that code, we'll build the code. Once the code is ready, we will try to build a Docker image. And once we build a Docker image, then we will use that Docker image. This is the basic workflow. Right? So, okay. Let me use it in this way. So, your developer commits the code to the Git repository. Once the developer commits the code to the Git repository, what we do is, we basically start building the code. To build the code, if it is Java, we might use a different stuff. So let me use a Java example. So, yeah. Either one. So now we build it using Maven. Okay. Once the Maven image is ready, then what we will do is we will try to build the Docker image icon. Let me see if I get some image. No. Right. So I'll write it over here. We will build the Docker image. But Docker image, when we build, it will be in your local system. Yeah. But all the images should be present in where? Docker Hub is not a right answer. It is a registry. Docker Hub is a free registry which you are using. Your company might use Docker Hub or might not use a Docker Hub. So once we build this Docker image, then what we will do is we will push this Docker image to registry. Okay, and registry could be Docker Hub. Okay, default registry is Docker Hub. It is not guaranteed that every company will use Docker Hub. Okay, it can be ECR. ECR is AWS's Elastic Container Registry, and then we have something called as ACR, Azure Container Registry, and then we have something called as what was that? Artifact. So there are many registries available in this world. You can use any one of them. And now, then what would happen is, where is this direction? This image which you have built will be taken from your registry and will be used in Kubernetes or Docker Swarm or whatever it is. But right now, since Kubernetes is an extremely important example, I am going to do this. This is a basic workflow. Yeah. So we have a Git, a code in a Git. We'll take that code. We'll build the Maven. Okay. Maven will give you the applications package, and then once we have that package, we will try to build a Docker image. Once we have this Docker image, we'll push that Docker image, right? And all of these activities will be done from a CI/CD machine. So you might be using a Jenkins, GitLab, or you might be using Visual Studio or Azure DevOps for that. So you might use whatever software which your company wants to use. But in this course, we will learn about two things. One is Jenkins, the other one is Azure DevOps. So let me put that icons also. So I'll put Jenkins itself. So we have a Jenkins job which does all of this. Yes, this is a CI/CD pipeline of your Docker based containerized application. So we'll have a developer who writes the code and then we'll build the code. Here if you see Maven is for Java projects. If your technology is different, in the place of Maven you might have some other tool. So for example, if you are doing .NET, you might have a MS build. If you are basically working on C, you might have a Makefile over here. Whatever it is, depending on whatever language it is, your build tool might change. And then we'll build a Docker image. We'll push the Docker image, and then once the Docker image is available in your registry, then we'll use it in Kubernetes to create our pods. Where we'll get all the benefits of whatever we have discussed about Kubernetes. So this is a basic workflow. Alright. So am I clear on this? Yeah. So let me save this. So Jan 20 DevOps, Jan 20. I'll write it in Docker images. Docker 13 dot Docker 13. So CI or CD pipeline with Docker containers. Am I clear with this? Your developer writes the code. You will pick the code. You will basically build it. Images like apply anukunta kada. Yeah, images. Docker 13.png. Okay. So basically what is it? Create a Jenkins job. Okay. So if your company is not using Jenkins, it will be that other CI/CD tools, right? Okay. Get the latest code from Git. దీంట్లో కొంతమందికి కొన్ని పదాలు తెలియకపోవచ్చు. It's okay. We'll learn all of them. It is not necessary that you will understand everything. Okay. Git is where your code is. And now build the package using build tools like Maven. Okay, depending on whatever your developers are using, you will use that build package. And now, using the package built, okay, create the Docker image. Okay, tag the Docker image and send it to the registry. Your registry can be Docker Hub, your registry can be whatever which you want to use, right? So, and then once you have done that, okay, pull the Docker image from registry and deploy using Kubernetes or Swarm or whatever it is, etc. This is a basic workflow. This is how your DevOps pipeline will be built. Okay, and for dev environment, we'll have dev Kubernetes cluster. For test environment, we'll have test Kubernetes cluster. For prod environment, you'll have production Kubernetes cluster. Depending on what is the environment, you will have a different clusters, and you will be doing this deployment. Am I clear on this? So over here, if you see, there is application which you have to build, and after that you build that application, you are carrying that image and then doing this activity. So how will I design this? If you look at this design, okay, so I'll have Git, and then whenever I'm drawing a box, consider it to be one server. Okay, so I'll have one server where I'll install Maven and Docker. Okay, so and Git also. I'll take the code from Git, I'll build the Maven package, and then I'll push it to the Docker. Okay, so shall I do this for Spring Batch Clinic very quickly so that you'll understand it? Okay. Right, so let me go to console. I'll quickly create a Ubuntu machine, and then I'll do all of this activity from a Ubuntu machine. Okay, manually. Not com. Okay, let me launch an instance. I'll take Ubuntu machine. Permit you to micro is more than enough. Okay, I will go with this. Let me call this as build system, so that we are clear about this. Okay, and Debian launch. Yeah, Linux bootcamp should be fine. So in this machine, I have to install two softwares. One is Java, the other one is Maven, the third one is Git. Okay, Git is to get the code. Maven is to build the Java code, and after that I need to write a Docker file to build the. Okay, right. So for the people who don't know Maven, just look at it as how the DevOps and our DevOps works. Don't worry about how Maven is working, because you'll have a whole discussion on Maven when the time comes, right? Yeah. So where is Spring Batch Clinic's code available? So I'll just say Spring Batch Clinic. So are you seeing some project, some code where it is available? So this is the code of Spring Batch Clinic. Am I clear on this? Okay, right. Now let me go over here. Okay. Okay. So see. Okay. Let me see what is available in this machine. So I need Git, Java, and Maven. Okay. And Docker installed. So let me see Git --version. I have Git available. Java --. or Java will not work with hyphen version. It will be hyphen version. Do I have Java? No. So if there is no Java, there is no way on earth that your Maven is going to work. So we need Java and Maven to be installed. Similarly, Docker hyphen version. I don't have Docker also. So let me start the installation process. Okay. So sudo apt-get install. Let me not do install also. First apt-get update, and then let us search for Java 8 package. Okay, you can Google this for. If you are new to this world, you can basically say how to install Java on Ubuntu 18, and you will get the steps. Blindly copy paste that steps, right? So anyway, very soon we'll be starting the package management in Ubuntu and package management in Linux. We are going to speak about apt and yum. Okay, so apt cache, search, open JDK. Then it is time to tell that, okay, these are the JDK packages which have. JDK is a Java development version, right? So I'm going to take this. Okay. So sudo apt-get install. దయచేసి ఈ కమాండ్ గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవద్దు. Okay. So don't try to remember that command. Use it with apt cache. If you are working with yum, use yum search, so that you will come to know. There is no need for you to remember any commands. Okay. So if you remember, just remember because you have used it too many times, you remember that commands, not because you have by-hearted them. Periodic table అందరూ by-heart చేశారుగా. ఇప్పుడు 10 ఎలిమెంట్లు పేరు చెప్పండి. That's the problem. I am quite sure that during intermediate, all of us would have by-hearted the whole periodic table. Yes or no? Now can you tell me 10 elements names? Because if you by-heart, okay, very few people will have a strength to remember after these many years. Yeah. అలా కూడా గుర్తు పెట్టేసుకునే శక్తి ఉంటే అదే ట్రై చేయండి. నాకైతే అంత ఎంబీ లేదు స్టోరేజ్ లో. ఓకే, ఫైన్. ఓకే దెన్. సో ఐ హ్యావ్ జావా ఇన్స్టాల్, జావా హైఫన్ version. Now I have to install Maven. So sudo apt cache search Maven. So where is Maven? Are you seeing Maven over here? If you want to find the version, you can use something called as apt cache Madison. Okay, but it's okay, man. Okay, adi kuda kavalante you can do that. Sudo apt cache Madison Maven. Then it says that I have 3 versions of Maven. Maven 3.6.0.1 and all of that stuff, right? So sudo apt-get install Maven. I'll use hyphen. Okay, I'm just showing you the build process. This is all not required for Docker, but this is required for us to understand 2 concepts. One is a multi-staged build, the other one is registry. Yeah. Okay then. So now to install Docker, we all know one easier mechanism, which is get Docker script. Okay. So in here, okay, and then sh get hyphen docker dot sh. So now this machine which I have built is your build system for your project. So this should have Git, this should have Maven, and this should have Docker install. Okay, once you have all of these 3, then we call it as a build system. And this build system is something which are Jenkins or any CI/CD tool like Azure DevOps or Bamboo or GitLab will basically call to build the package and then send the image to the registry. So now let me copy this, add it over here, exit, log in into it, and then let us see if I have all the required softwares now. Okay, so Git, obviously it is present. Java hyphen version, MVN hyphen version. We have Maven, Docker hyphen version. Do you have everything now? Okay. Now, build steps. The build steps is take the code from build repository. So for that, copy this and then execute a command called as git clone and this. Okay. So now if you do ls, are you seeing Spring Bat Clinic? So I'll get into Spring Bat Clinic. To build the Spring Bat Clinic, we will be using something called as mvn. This is a command to build the Java code. Okay. It will take some time. I think it will slightly take little bit of more time itself. It is trying to build the code whatever your developers have written, and with this you will get two results: build is success or a failure. When build is success, then we have to build a Docker image. It will take decent amount of time. I can't stop it now. Yeah. I can't fast forward it. Let us wait for it to completion. I could have taken Game of Life, man. That will be built very fast. Okay, I'll do one thing. While this is doing its job, uh, let me also take one more image. So, what is this machine? Okay. Git bash here. Ah, okay. Right. So, I'll try to take one more application. This will be very much fast in building. That's the only reason I'm trying to take it. Okay. So we'll do almost the similar steps. Get clone. I'll stop this one. I can't wait for it because it has test. After test, it has to do package. ఇప్పటికి కంపైల్ అయింది అందులో. Okay, good. Yes, I found. Yes, good. Okay. Now, if you do ls, are you seeing game of life? So I'll get into game of life, and then I'll say execute the same command mvn package. And this will not take that much time. Spring Link has lot of dependencies. That's where it will take a lot of time to work. Done? Yes. Okay. Now, if you look into this, are you seeing cd game of life -web? Yeah. In this, there will be a target folder. Okay. Now, if you do ls, are you seeing game of life.war? This is a package of this application. If I copy this package into the Tomcat container, my application will start working. That's how simple it is. Yeah. So now, to build this application, what is it I'm supposed to do now? So I have to write a Docker image, yes or no? Yeah. So I'll be writing vi Docker file, and then I'll go to the Docker hub, and then in the Docker hub, I'll try to search. This application requires Tomcat to work. So I'll try to search for Tomcat. Don't worry about the steps. Okay. So Tomcat. And to be very specific, it requires any version of Tomcat 8. So let me go and click on this. Okay. Okay, it is not JDK 11. Tomcat 8, JDK 8 is what we require. Are you seeing this? Tomcat :8. So I'll be writing from Tomcat :8. And now you just look. I have my Docker file over here. Yes. And where is the jar file? Where is the var file? In game of life web. Okay. And in game of life web, there is something called as target. Okay. So if you look at it, game of life -web, there is a folder called as target. So I have to basically copy a file from game of life web target, and then there is a file called as game of life.war file. Okay. So I have to copy a file from my local system into the Docker image. What is that I can do now? Add or copy. Okay, anything I can use, because add can do both, copy can do only one thing. Okay, now if you basically look at it, okay, if you want to see what is the folder in which I have to copy, now for this experimentation you can do this: Docker container run hyphen it tomcat colon 8, okay, slash bin slash bash. Okay, right. Now if you see, are you seeing a folder called as web apps over here? So I have to copy that to user local tomcat web apps. Okay, that's what I need to do. So now if I have to write a Docker file, what will I do now? Okay, so first vi Docker file, and then after this, if I require, I'll be writing some label. Okay, saying that, okay, owner equals to none, something, whatever you want to add. Okay, and then this application will require 8080 port to work. So expose 8080. Okay, and then I want to add what? Or copy. You can use copy also, it's fine. Okay, in my current directory there is a folder called as, okay, if you want to know the correct path, you can go into this game of life hyphen web. So game of life hyphen web, and in that there will be a folder called as target. In that target there will be a folder called as game of life dot war. Okay, so copy that, or copy that to what? User local tomcat game of life dot war file. Okay, now web apps marchipena. Okay, so slash, okay, right. So right, and now basically if you look at this tomcat, even if I don't write cmd, it will take the cmd of the parent image. So I am good, but it is always safer just copy this cmd and paste it over here. The reason is, this was working for tomcat, I need tomcat to be running, not game of life. For that reason I am basically doing that. Is it done? So I have this Docker file now. To build this image, what is that I'll do? Now I'll say Docker image build -t, and then I'll be calling it as my GOL, my game of life, colon 0.1 and dot. Right now I don't have any build arguments and I don't have any environmental variables, so I'm not setting anything. I'll click on this. So is it working? Yeah. Now let us see whether this application works or not. So Docker container run -d -p 8080 colon 8080 my game of life colon 0.1. Okay. Now I'll do Docker container ls. So is this running? Yeah. Now I'll go to the instances, take the public IP address of this, and then I'll copy this 8080. Okay, fine. Tomcat enduko pani chestadtaledu. Pardon me? All traffic open chesa. Security group open chesa idi raadu 404 raadu asla. We cannot reach to this packet itself. Yeah. Okay, fine. Whatever it is, we got error, that's fine. Okay. Now I have built the Docker image, right? Now what is the next step? I have to send this Docker image to the registry. So that others can use it. So I have a Docker Hub. In my Docker Hub, I have an account. Okay. So now, basically, let us get started over here. So what is a registry? Registry is collection of Docker images. Okay. So every registry has its own way of login. So right now we are worried about Docker Hub. Okay. We will also be discussing about ACR and ECR at the later point of time. Okay. So in Docker Hub, what Docker Hub says is, if you want to log in into Docker Hub, okay, if you want to send the images to Docker Hub, okay, sending the images to Docker Hub is called as push. Okay. Before, okay, uploading images, which is not a right word, push, okay, to Docker Hub, login into Docker Hub from command line. So for that, what you are supposed to use is, you are supposed to use a command called as Docker login. Okay. Then it will ask, what is your Docker Hub username? So I am writing mine. Okay. And then password. Okay. Fine. Right. So now Docker image ls. So are you saying my GOL? Let me try to push it. Docker image push my GOL colon 0.1. It will not work. It will fail ideally. Okay. Because your images cannot have whatever name which you want. Your image should follow a naming convention. Your image should have a naming convention of your Docker Hub's username / your image name. So Docker image, okay, hyphen. So are you seeing something called as Docker image tag? Yes. So Docker image tag hyphen help. So what is it trying to tell? Docker image tag, give me the source name and give me the target name. For the same image, if you want to give a different name, I can help you with this command, because I have something called as tag name. So what I'll do is Docker image tag my GOL colon 0.1. I have to follow a convention, and every registry might have its own convention. For Docker Hub, the convention is username / image name. So my username is, okay, and then image name. And if you want, you can give the, okay. Now let me try to push this Docker image push Is it trying to push? Yes. Okay. Tomorrow, whenever you are working with a different registry, there you might have a different naming convention. Every registry will have some naming convention, and you have to follow that. Okay. So am I clear on all of these steps now? So you have taken a code, you have cloned the code, you have built the actual image using original software, and then you have used that to build a Docker image. And after building a Docker image, what you have done is you have tagged it. So if you don't want to tag, directly put the images names with this convention, right? So, and then you have actually pushed the image. Now your image is in your Docker registry once this command is successful. You have to do all of the steps. So now, just for clarity, okay, sample, okay, scenario. Push Spring, but clinical. Let me not use. Let me use game of life itself, because it will be fast. Game of life to Docker Hub. So first, what is it you are supposed to do is Okay. Clone the code. Okay. For that you have used the command git clone. Okay. And where is game of life? Right. And then build the code. I am not showing you installation instructions that you can follow on your own. MVN package. Okay. Create a Docker file at the root folder of game of life. So for example, we have done that. Okay. Cat Docker file. Right. Okay. Now build the Docker image. So for that we have basically said Docker image build -t and then let me give as game of life : 1.0. Okay, and then dot. Okay, log in to Docker Hub. So Docker login. Okay, give whatever username which it is. My username was మీరు ఇదే పేరు ఇచ్చేకండి, మీకు పాస్వర్డ్ తెలియదు ఖచ్చితంగా. ఓకే, అండ్ దెన్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఎంటర్ యువర్. ఓకే, నౌ టు పుష్ Docker image to Docker Hub, pattern is username / image name :tag, whatever tag which you want to basically give. So for that I have called it as Docker image tag GOL : 1.0 to my username as GOL : 1.0. Okay, and then I have executed a command which is called as Docker image push. Actually I am directly using Docker push, that's it. Okay, and then GOL : 1.0. This is your build process. Okay, and remember the image push process changes from registry to registry. మీరు డాకర్ హబ్ లో ఇది వాడారు కదా, ఇది మీకు బాగా నచ్చిందని ECR లో కూడా ఇలాగే పనిచేయదు. Right, depending on your registry the tag names might be different. In Docker Hub the pattern is username / something. Okay, if you go to Amazon's ECR they will have different pattern over there and you have to follow that pattern. How to log in into a registry, that changes. Am I clear on this? But these steps are basically for pushing the images to the Docker Hub. Okay, so am I clear on this? This is a scenario which speaks about pushing the images to Docker Hub. Tomorrow if your company is using ACR, Azure Container Registry, you have to look at Azure's documentation to find out how to push an image. If you are using ECR, different set of documentation, but the commands are common. It will be Docker push, it will be Docker build, it will be Docker tag. But how to tag an image, what should be the naming convention, that changes. Okay, how to log in into the stuff, the login perspective changes. Docker login you have directly given username and password. If it is ECR you might need to do something else. So that's it, but the commands are same. Am I clear on this? Right, now you have this. Now the whole problem, look at this whole stuff now. Now what Docker tries to tell is, why do you want to basically have a build system with Git installed, Maven installed, and then Docker installed? I can get your build done just by installing Docker. If you really are looking out only to build a Docker image, if you are not worried about other stuff, I can help you in directly building a Docker image. So what Docker tries to tell us, okay, do you remember our steps? What is that we have done? We have done git clone, we have done MEN package. So for this, we needed a machine with Git installed, Java installed, and then Maven installed, and then Docker installed. So what Docker tries to tell is, I have a concept called as multi-staged building. If you use multi-stage building, the only thing which you require is Docker. The only thing which you require is Docker. So what is the multi-staged build whole about? Multi-staged builds can be used to build applications, and they will not give you packages, but they will create Docker images. So for example, if I am not interested in WAR file, I am interested in Docker Game of Life's Docker Hub image, then you really don't need any Maven to be installed. You can basically use a multi-staged. How? How does that work? So then he tries to tell that in this case, you have to use Docker file in a different fashion. You have to use a Docker file in a different fashion. What he tries to tell us, okay, multi-stage build works in this way. Okay. So each of this call this as one stage. Okay. So here I might be telling from Maven. What does from Maven mean? I am taking a Docker image which already has a Maven, and in that I am trying to tell that run, okay, get clone whatever you want to clone. So now where is the clone happening? In this image. Yeah. And then I will say run MVN package. So where is the package building? Right. Okay. So, and then after that, you will basically, you have to run this application. To run this application, you need Tomcat. So you have to install Tomcat in this Docker image. You have to install Java in this image. You have to have everything. So the problem is, if you try to build everything in one Docker image, you need to have Java, you need to have Git, you need to have Maven, everything is same. But what is that our application requires? Our application is a simple Tomcat image with our application that needs to be copied. Okay. So for this, what Docker tries to tell us, do separate stages. Okay. This called it as build container. Okay. Or build context, whatever you call it. Okay. And this is your application. So what does your application require? Only Tomcat. So you create one more image in the same Docker file, just say from Tomcat : 8. Okay. And now from here, what is that we need? We need only WAR file. Yes or no? Okay. So you just say that from Maven as my build. So what is this context called as? Build context. Okay. And over here, what you will try to do is, you will try to copy. And you will try to copy Game of Life from this context. From this context. So let me show you the example of it. So ఇది అందరూ వాడుతున్నారా? వాట్లా. Okay. But this is an interesting concept from Docker. See what is he trying to do now. He is using from Golang and he is doing some work over here. So he has written a Docker file and then he has written this stuff. Okay. Now when you go to multi-stage building, what is he trying to do? Okay. So this is not a very good way. This is a better way. So what is he calling it as? He has given a name of this as a builder, and then he is trying to tell that copy from builder. That means from the above stage. What is that you want to copy? There is a file called as this app. In our case, it will be a WAR file. Copy that into some folder. Okay. Now what I'll do is, okay. Now when we build, I'll say from build. Okay. What is that I need to build? Some game of life.war. I'm just writing //gol. Where do you need to copy this? You need to copy this into user local whatever it is. I'm just not writing the whole path, I'm just writing the stuff. Okay. So what is it you're trying to write? You're trying to divide your Docker file into two things now. One for building the image other one for the actual container. So what you will be pushing is this. But when you build your application, you are building the application and doing git clone, MVN package, everything from this. So shall I try to write the Docker file for that so that you'll understand the whole stuff? Okay. Now what I'll do is, let me go over here. Okay. And then I'll change this Docker file. Okay. So I'm okay. Okay. This is all fine. Okay. This is what we require for our Tomcat image. But I'll tell that from I need Maven. So let me go to the Docker Hub. Where is Docker Hub? Docker Hub. Okay. I need an image which has a Maven, right? Because to build that image, I need Maven. Okay. So Maven. Okay. And Maven, and we were using what? JDK 3-JDK-8. Yes. That is what we have installed, right? We have installed Maven 3 and then we have taken the JDK 8 version. So from Maven colon, and I am calling this as okay. And in this, I am trying to tell that run. Okay. Get clone. Yes. Okay. And what will you do? CD game of life. And then you will say run MVN package. Am I clear on this? So you are building the package in the other Docker file. Okay. And if you see, this is exactly what is basically trying to do. Okay. So after he has basically done that, okay, then he is doing some of his build activities, right? Okay. Now let me basically do this. Okay. So if you come over here, I'll be calling this as, oh sorry, copy hyphen from. What is my from? Builder. In builder, where is my var file? My var file is in root directory. There is something called as game of life, and in game of life I have this folder and I'm copying that to this. So let us see whether this works out. Yeah. So Docker image build -t. Okay. Test build colon 0.1. Okay. And my Docker file is in here. Okay. What is that? Missing. Either miss chesanu ikkada. Miss something. What is that? Line 8. Okay. That's it, man. Run MVN package. That is fine. ఏంటి run equal to equals to okay. Okay, yes. Now what is happening is the game of life cloning. Remember, all of this we used to do on a machine. Now we are not doing it on a machine. We are doing it in container. Okay. And now, okay, what has happened? Build failure. Good. Why does it fail? Okay. I got the context. Of it. So, మన folder path lo. Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me copy these things. Before writing any of these instructions, if you remember, I have always said that run that manually once inside the container. Let us do that activity. Okay. So Docker container run -it maven, and then did I use maven or maven:3-jdk:8? ఒక్కసారి BA. Okay. Okay. Fine. So Docker container run -it maven:3-jdk:8/bin/. Okay. Now what is that we are trying to do? Get whatever you have tried to write over here. Let me execute the same instructions. Okay. So what is that folder? Game of life. So am I using the same thing? cd hyphen game of life, and then I'm trying to do mvn. Okay, it is working, right? Then okay, this is what is happening. What should happen internally? Okay, ఇది ఎందుకు బిల్డ్ చేయడం అర్థమైందిగా పని చేద్దని. Exit. Now let me go to the vi docker file. Okay, I'll do one thing. Okay, run. Let us see now whether it will work or not. Docker image build. The goal is to specify the project, but there is no pom.xml. ఎందుకు pom.xml ఎందుకు లేదు? Where is it running from? mvn package. I'm in the current directory. Should okay. I can do one more thing. Okay, what is the home directory setting in Docker file? If I have to set the home directory, what is the other thing which I can do? /game of life. Yeah. A folder correct ga ichchanuga. There should not be any other reason why it should fail. Yeah. Okay. So I have given work there and it has started working. Yeah. So is it building game of life now? Okay. So now you are not using any other software on the build system. You are just installing Docker. Building the code is also happening in Docker, and it will build the code. After it builds the code, what it does is it will copy the war file, whatever you have generated, into the Tomcat. Your resulting container is just a Tomcat. It will not have all the maven which you have installed, all the git which you have cloned. So in your container, you are getting an optimized image of just a Tomcat. Okay. So there are some companies who are moving their build systems completely into Docker containers. Okay. So in that cases, whenever you are writing your Docker files, you have to use this multi-stage Docker. Okay. One portion of your Docker to basically do the stuff. So am I able to copy it? Yes. Okay. Now this way of building is becoming very popular in the microservices world. in the microservices world. So what you do is, for building the code also you are using a Docker container. So your Jenkins node will just have Docker. It will not have any other software. It will just have only Docker. So for example, if I am writing .NET applications, I will not install .NET. I will take a Docker container where .NET is already installed. I'll build the code in that. Okay. The resulting folders or files, whatever is required, I'll copy it into my existing or the actual container. If you see over here, okay, my actual container will still have Tomcat itself. But to build the Tomcat, I would require a war file. To build that war file, what is it I'm trying to write? I'm writing one more war statement or one more. Okay. So over here, to build this, okay, to build this is all my build steps. Okay. The only thing which I want from here is only war file. And that war file I'm copying it into the second layer. Your actual container will always contain your last layer. You can write multiple from statements and your Docker image will consist of only the last from. Only the last from. In some cases, I have written only 2 stages over here. In some companies, there are 3 stages. In some companies, there are 4 stages. But your Docker image will consist only of this last stage. Okay. So, alright. Okay. So, what is that we have done? Let's build the application, game of life, and okay, using Maven and create a Docker image from the single Docker file. Even earlier you can write a single Docker file, but what was required? In your application image, you have to install Git, you have to install Maven, you have to install Java, right? And then you have to install Tomcat. So if there is an application which consists of Git, Maven, Jenkins, Git, Maven and Tomcat, it will be a huge image. It will be a huge image. So, but if you have just Tomcat, it will be a lighter weight image. That's the whole point, right? So for that, what that we have done? We have write a very simple stuff. And it is better that if I add this multi-staging to the last. Okay. So multi-stage Docker building means, right? So whatever is the last stage which you have written, this is, each one is a stage. So builder is one stage and this is one stage. So you can have 100 stages. All the above 99 will be skipped. Whatever is the last from statement, that will be what you will have in your resulting Docker image, right? So whatever you have, you can copy from one stage into this. You can copy the data from one stage into this. For example, your application requires 3 jar files. Okay. So you will put one from where you will build one jar file. Second from where you will put second jar file. Third from where you will put the third jar file. And at the end, let us assume you use OpenJDK container. So all of the 3 jars will be copied into one machine. And at the end of the system, at the end of the day, what you have is your image has just this, not this. But while building the image, it will use that. Okay. So this is one stage and this is the second stage. Over here we are using a 2-stage build where we are copying the files from one stage into another. ఇది చాలా మంది వాడట్లేదు, కొంతమంది వాడటం మొదలు పెట్టారు కూడా. So if they ask about multi-stage builds, do you know about multi-stage builds or multi-stage Docker file containers? It is nothing but generally till date we have seen a Docker file with only one from statement. But here you are seeing a Docker file with 2 from statements. Whatever is the last from state, that will be considered in the Docker image. And you can copy the files from one stage into another stage. Okay. You can use as or you can use index. Whatever you have written from, the index of this is 0 and the index of this is 1. So you can copy from 0 to 1. Always a better practice is to use a name. So I have given a name of this stage as builder. You can give whatever name which you want. You can give it as Spider-Man, Superman, whatever it is. But ensure that you give the same name over here. These 2 names should match. Am I clear on this? Now to build the Python code or to build the .NET code, okay, I really don't need a .NET agent altogether. I can take a Docker image where .NET is already available. But remember, this works out if your company is only looking for Docker images. Okay, now if your tester says that, okay, can you give me a war file also? Right, here there is no war file. Here what we get is a Docker image all the time. So if you want to see the packages also, this approach will not work out. Alright. So, but if you want to basically, if you are interested only in Docker images, then this approach will definitely work out. And this is called as a multi-staged Docker. Okay. And I'll give the link of this also and also read through this. Okay. So, refer here. Am I clear on this? So, for building Docker, you really don't need a special system. If you have Docker installed on one machine, that is far more than enough. Yeah? Okay. Right. Why gap given? Just because I like gaps. Okay. My favorite brand is Gap. Yeah. Okay. Because it has to be readable, sir. If I put everything in, after that, if I don't give spaces, right? So you will not be able to make out. So to add readability, we have done that. Okay. Multi-staged build means avoiding Git man. So I'm sorry, I don't come to that conclusions. See, multi-staged build means, okay, you can build the code using Maven, or you can copy the files from one stage to other stage, and you can build an optimized image. You can build an optimized image. So what is a Docker image? Docker image is collection of layers. Now let us assume that I don't want to use Jenkins build system. I want to use Docker itself. I can do that without multi-stage also. But in that, what should my image contain? My image should contain Git. My image should contain Java installed. My image should contain Maven installed. And my image to run the application requires a Tomcat also. So to run Tomcat application, I require Java anyway. So I require 2 softwares, but I am installing 4. Yes or no? If I use only one image for that. So what does this multi-stage does? It gives you an optimization. So you can just have whatever is required for your application to work. Rest of the data you can skim it or you can remove it by having a multi-staged build. Okay. So earlier what people used to do is, since this is difficult, they used to go with an agent where, like what we have started this. We have installed Git, we have installed Maven, and once we have installed Maven, we have taken only the necessary package and then copied in there. That's how it is. Clear on that? Yes? Okay. So I think I've spoken mostly about Docker today. Yeah. But still, we should the stage names be different? Yes. You cannot have 2 stages with the same name. No. Yeah. Okay. Right. So if you look at Docker, in Docker image building, there is nothing left. We have discussed about all the possibilities now. And I have asked you to solve one problem, and that is very much required for you to work and very much required for your job. I am not telling the answer of that. Today find it for yourself. Okay. And pardon me? Well, I don't know the answer. I am not telling it anyway. Try it and tell it to me. నాకు తెలియదు అనుకోండి, నేను అజ్ఞానం అనుకోండి, నాకు చెప్పండి. Okay. Right. So you tell me, if you basically explore it, prove it is working, show me with results. I don't want what do you call the guess play around here. Make it work. Tell that information to me. So in the next class, I would expect your answer. Okay, because I also want to learn from you. Okay. So generally, I want to understand what is the fix. I have done some mistake, right? I want you guys to correct me. Clear on that? Yeah. And then Docker, after that, we have basically spoken about registry, and today we have spoken about a registry called as Docker Hub. In Docker Hub, if you have an account, you can push your Docker image. So to push your Docker image, you have to use a sub naming convention. Naming convention will be username / name of your image / tag. So my username was Sheikh Khaja Ibrahim. I have used Sheikh Khaja Ibrahim / mygol / 1.0. Ideally, if it was not Docker Hub, I would have used GOL or mygol / 1.0. But to push to the Docker image to the Docker Hub, I have to follow some pattern. Right? That's what I have basically done. Those command sequence, expose first. Okay. Try that. We have discussed a lot of stuff, right? Mohan Reddy, మీరు చాలా అడిగారు, ఇప్పుడు చేయండి. చేసే సమయం వచ్చింది ఇంకా. రైట్? ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఇన్నాళ్ళు మీరు చేసిన దానికి ఇంకా మీరే నలుగురికి ప్రశ్నలకి సమాధానాలు చెప్పే పరిస్థితిలో ఉండాలి ఇంకా. రైట్? మీరు పల్లెటూరులో ఎప్పుడన్నా భోజనానికి వెళ్ళి ఉంటే తినేసి వెనక్కి తిరుగుతారు వంటగదికేసి, ఇంకేమున్నా ఇంట్లో అని. రైట్? ఓకే, మీరు కూడా దగ్గరగా ఆ పరిస్థితిలో ఉండాలి. రైట్? ఎస్? ఓకే, ఫైన్ దెన్. సో ఆర్ వి క్లియర్? So please try to do the practice. Yeah, things will be adding up with the exponential speed from now on, because okay, So now we know how to build Docker images, right? We know how to push the Docker images to the Docker Hub. Now what is left? Take that image from there, run it in Kubernetes, scale it, okay? Make it workable, right? No matter how many customers you have, your application should scale. Now we are not worrying about how to build the images. We will be worrying about how to make our application run with extreme number of users, with extreme scaling limits, right? All of that will come to play into Kubernetes. And tomorrow we'll start our class by discussing Kubernetes objects. We'll be discussing about Kubernetes objects. Okay. So we'll be discussing about pods. We already know about nodes already. I'm quite sure we have discussed about 2 nodes that are basically available over there. And then we'll be getting into the other Kubernetes objects. What are controllers, right? And what is a specification? What is a specification, right? Okay then. Fine. So to push that stack, why you used GWL? I used. Okay, name can be anything. There is no restriction on name. Yeah. So as long as your account doesn't have the same image name and same tag, you can push the same thing again and again. So if let us assume you have my GOL, you can use my GOL con 0.1. But next time when you give the same thing, it will fail, saying that okay, you already have a tag with that. Okay. Then the only option which you have is you can force the push, saying that okay, I know I have it, I want to override it. Okay. So name is just because I think I forgot it. Why మీద పడుతుంది కదా మర్చిపోయి ఉంటాను my GOL. Right. Yeah. Tomorrow class same time. No, I done tomorrow class is not same time. It is general in the normal weekday timing. Okay. So 7:40 or 7:45 something. Yeah. Okay then. Okay. So I know there was a confusion. Yesterday they thought that it was a Kubernetes class. కొంతమంది ఫోన్ చేసి వాళ్ళని అంటున్నారంట, వాళ్ళని అనే ముందు మీరు క్లాస్ గురువారం మీరేం చేశారు? We have discussed about weekend class timings on which day? Thursday. Yeah. Thursday in the evening we have decided that Saturday morning and Sunday morning we are going to have Kubernetes classes. Okay. ఫోన్ చేసి పాప మా అమ్మాయిని తిడితే ఆ అమ్మాయికి ఏం తెలుస్తుంది? క్లాస్ లో మీరు ఉన్నారా, అమ్మాయి ఉందా? ఓకే, పోనీ ఆ రోజు చూడాల, రికార్డింగ్ అన్నా చూడాలిగా, గురువారం రికార్డింగ్ శనివారానికన్నా కంప్లీట్ అవ్వాలిగా, రైట్? మీరు వినకుండా వాళ్ళకి ఫోన్లు చేసి వాళ్ళని తిడితే వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారు? దానికి మళ్ళీ వాళ్ళు నా మీద తలుగుతారు, మీరు సగం సగం చెప్తారు నాకని, రైట్? Okay, fine then. So we'll meet tomorrow to continue this discussion and understand one thing: you have a half day. It is not for fun. It is just because I'm giving you that time because you need some time to practice. We have a hell lot of things to be discussed. You have to finish all of this, and from tomorrow we have another big big elephant in the room. We have a Kubernetes, right? We can't ignore that. Okay. So, and after we finish Kubernetes, we have to speak about OpenShift. And in the meantime, we also have to speak about Windows containers. All these days I have been dealing with only Linux containers. I have to deal with Windows containers as well. So, meeku kavalchinanta pani undi. Okay? Right? సో పనికి ఆహార పథకానికి 100 పని దినాలు అంటారు కదా, మీకు 100 పని దినాలు 30 రోజుల్లో అయితే ఎలా ఉంటుందో దగ్గరగా ఈ వారం అంతా అలాగే ఉంటుంది, రైట్? You have hell lot of things to be done, and this is extremely important. That's where I have asked you to solve that stuff. Start searching, find answers. Okay, you have a whole Stack Overflow. You can ask questions. I'm not asking you to not to Google. I'm asking you to Google, experiment, come to deal with the things, because Docker is extremely important. So if you are not strong at Docker and Jenkins, forget about DevOps interview. You will not even be able to qualify to it. Jenkins first question అడుగుతారా, అవి చెప్పబోతే ఇంకేం రాదులే, అనవసరంగా వచ్చినట్టున్నాడు అని మంచినీళ్ళు కాఫీ ఏమన్నా తాగుతారా అని చెప్పి బయటికి గంటేస్తారు, రైట్? సో అది ఓకే దెన్, థ్యాంక్స్, రైట్.